These are the 5 best and worst fantasy books I've read this year. I always prefer getting bad news first, so I'm going to start with the ones that I didn't really like. Side note, these are in no particular order. The first one being When the Moon Hatched. This book is 800 something pages long, and it's only book 1.
Hello?
There's also a plot twist in this book that wasn't really a plot twist because I called it at the beginning of the book. So you're telling me at page 300, 350, that's finally when the FMC and MMC meet?
In an 800 something page book?
By the time I got through the book, it just felt like a waste of time. It's safe to say I will not be continuing the series. It's the book of the second name. The second book on my list is Quicksilver. I will not be picking up the second book that just came out. I'm pretty sure it's called Brimstone. This book is supposed to be enemies to lovers. The enemies was never really there for the MMC. I feel like he tried to be enemies with the FMC Ceres, but it just didn't do much for me. One thing that drives me nuts about a lot of enemies to lovers books nowadays is even though they're enemies at first, they're still noticing how beautiful and handsome and gorgeous one another are. You would just not think that if they were truly your enemy.
Am I wrong?
And the spice in this book was not for me. Book 3 is From Blood and Ash. I actually enjoyed the first book of the series, but when I got to book 2, I was halfway through the book and it didn't feel like there was any progress from the beginning of the book to the midpoint. The fourth book on my list is A Tempest of Tea. I had high expectations for this book, and that's probably my fault. A Tempest of Tea is about Arthie Casimir. Arthie runs a tea room by day and an illegal bloodhouse for vampires at night, which sounds like the perfect book for me. The book seemed to be a lot of telling rather than showing, and so I think when I was constantly being told about the plan, I just started to get a little bored. The fifth book on my list is Realm Breaker. Out of all 5 of these, this is definitely my favorite of my least favorite, but I seem to get a lot of
whiplash
while reading this first book. Had I known there were going to be so many POVs in this book, it probably wouldn't have given me such a whiplash. Regardless, the pace was a little slower than what I had wanted. The book gives a lot of Freyrin vibes, which I love Freyrin. I think that I would just prefer to watch a story like Freyrin than read it. Now for the 5 best fantasy books I've read this year. Most of these books are in a series. I want to read more standalone fantasy books, so if you have any good fantasy book recommendations that are standalones, please comment them. One Dark Window is about Elspeth Spindle, who has this ancient nightmare monster locked in her head. Of course, Elspeth meets a highwayman and her life takes a drastic turn. Rachel Gillig does an amazing job at painting a beautiful picture of the world building without it being too complicated. And same thing with the magic system. I've not seen a magic system like this. This is like magic meets tarot cards. There's no way that I can talk about my 5 favorite fantasy reads from 2025 without bringing up my shelf dedicated to A Darker Shade of Magic. This book series is about Kel, who is an Antari who has the magical ability to travel between the different Londons. There are 4 Londons: red, black, gray, and white London. The world building in this book is what immediately drew me into this series. The setting in these books is top tier. I have not yet had another fantasy book come close to this setting. This series also has some of my favorite characters of all time. Kel is not a perfect MMC, which was such a breath of fresh air because I'm kind of tired of that in romanticises. Don't even get me started about Lila Bard. She cracks me up, literally laughing out loud while reading the book. She's so funny. I love her so much. She is probably my all-time favorite FMC of all time. A Song to Drown Rivers cures my longing for more Apothecary Diaries. This book reminds me so much of Apothecary Diaries with the political and court drama. This book also reminds me a tiny bit of Spy Family because the FMC has to infiltrate an enemy kingdom and go undercover as a spy. This book does not have a traditional happy ending, which every now and then I love, and it's a standalone. This is gonna sound weird to say, but I'm so glad I put off reading Immortal Dark because now that I've read the first one, the second book is already out, so I can read it as soon as I want to. This fantasy has an academy, vampires, plot twists, mystery.
Need I say more?
I was all in. I feel so lucky to have found a new favorite author this year, and that is C.G. Drews. Technically, this would be 6 books, but since it's by the same author, I'm lumping them together has won. These are binge-worthy books. They're both about 300 pages long. I read Don't Let the Forest In one afternoon, and I also read Hazelthorne in one afternoon. Again, neither of these have the traditional happy ending. This one is more of an ambiguous ending, and this one is more of a kind of, but not so kind of happy ending. To me, both of these books are if Perks of Being a Wallflower were creepified and also had mysterious, magical, and creepy plants. I could talk all day about the prose in these books. I love them. I feel like there is something laced within the words of C.G. Drews because when I start reading their writing, I literally can't stop until the book is done. Thanks for commenting and sharing. All right, see ya.